Welcome. This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back again with an episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Today, the question is, are we on an express train to socialism? Maybe even socialism on steroids? Could it be communism? Well, let's take a look at it. You know, it does seem as if Bernie Sanders was actually elected president, and kind of a Bernie Sanders with even more energy than he has, and AOC the vice president, I think. But I mean, we're moving towards socialism at a much faster rate than I think we ever anticipated under Sanders. The Democrats thought they defeated socialism by defeating Sanders, and they got Biden, who seems to be his administration, not Biden himself. He doesn't seem to be awake most of the time. But his administration seems to be on an express train headed right for, I would say, socialism on steroids. The agenda is headed there on every front. I almost can't find an exception. Crime. Well, we've got crime rates going up in the Democrat cities by records. I know my city best, obviously. In my city, we've never set records like this. Last year, shootings went up 100% under Cuomo and de Blasio. And I'd say 90% of it is due to their policies, maybe 100. But it wasn't just New York. I mean, you came pretty close to records in places like St. Louis, Democrat mayor, Soros DA. Philadelphia, Democrat mayor, Soros DA. LA, Democrat mayor who they had to send off for an ambassadorship because the city is going to you-know-what, and a Soros DA they're trying to recall. This is the guy who ruined San Francisco. But now they got another Soros DA in San Francisco who's kind of picking up the job. Crime rates going through the roof. My goodness, in Seattle and Portland. Looks like New York in the bad days. Every single one that I mentioned to you is a Democrat city, and I left out the big one, Chicago. I mean, last 3 weekends. I mean, I kind of get nervous just saying it. Being in law enforcement, if I were the mayor of Chicago, I kind of think sometimes back like when I was mayor of New York and how much the crimes bothered me and how fast I wanted to bring them down, how anxious I got when it didn't work and how glad I was and happy for the police when it did. And I think to myself, how could I have lived through a 4th of July with 100 shootings? That's not that big a city. It's like less than half the size of New York. 100 shootings? Oh, and then they came down the next weekend. They had 77. This weekend, 11 people dead. Did you see a Black Lives Matter rally? Of course, those were a lot of black lives those 3 weekends. Probably 70, 80% black lives. Did you see a Black Lives Matter rally? Gee, I must have missed it. No, they were planning how to give hormones to your 7 or 8 year old child so they could switch genders. Because as you will find out, Black Lives Matter is not about black lives. It's about confiscation of property, communism, re-education of your children, and adjustment of gender. We'll get into that. So, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like in America right now. You didn't think we'd be here a year from now, a year ago, did you? This record crime, these tremendous changes in our way of life. Well, if you ever had any doubt about the Biden administration, whatever that is, commitment to socialism, last Thursday, I think it was Thursday, last week, Biden made it about as clear as anyone could understand. And I'm not even saying the media covered this up. He's doing so many other things wrong. There are so many other crises going on, whether it's the border or the Middle East or whatever is going on with China. We don't even notice it. He basically did something that if it were done 20 years ago, every newspaper would say, headed to communism. What was it? It was his plan, his economic plan for the entire American economy. Now, I've gone back and checked. We've never had like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan given to us by our executive for our economy. Now, Stalin had one of those. And even Khrushchev had one of those, and Mao had one, and the only one I can find right now is Xi Jinping in communist China. This is a communist playbook. The 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, the 15-year plan for the entire economy. Well, Beijing Joe has now laid out a plan, and you can look at the newspapers that are owned and operated by the Democrat Party, and you can see boldest plan ever, broadest plan ever, spans almost all of business. Biden mandates by executive order that businesses that are too concentrated will be subjected to massive regulations that will be imposed by the executive branch, ostensibly to reduce the tremendous business concentration that is going on in the United States and to increase competition. Now, that last part is like Orwell's 1984. Remember, please listen to me and you're going to see this will work. If they say they're going to increase competition, what are they really going to do? Come on. They're going to remove competition. I'm going to show you how. First of all, there's only one place where the experts, the economists agree there's too much concentration, and that's in big tech. And they're not going to do much about big tech because big tech are Democrats. They're not just Democrats. They're part of the conspiracy to censor. You think that censorship is just being done by Google and Twitter and all the rest of those oligarchs? Huh? You don't think that's being done in conjunction with the Democrat Party? How come they just censor the things that help Democrats and hurt Republicans? Huh? They got left-wing groups calling for murder. They don't censor it. And some guy says the election is questionable and he's off for 2 years. Sometimes the language the big tech co-conspirators use are exactly the same as the Democrat playbook. So they're not going to hit them very, very hard, maybe economically here and there, but they're not going to break into that censorship. It's their censorship along with them. But aside from big tech, where I certainly agree, you need a Teddy Roosevelt to break them up the way we broke up the telephone companies and the way back in Teddy's day we broke up big steel and the big industries. The rest of the American economy, economists who know far more about it than I do are in disagreement. That would be the most honest way you can put it. Some think we are too concentrated. Some think we're not concentrated enough. The CEO of the Business Roundtable, John Bolton, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal about this, that the breadth of issues, meaning the broad range of businesses he's attempting to regulate, could rather undermine competitiveness rather than assist it. So let's just agree for a moment that this is not one of those things that all the experts agree on, that there's too much concentration. If they don't agree on it, and it isn't a foregone conclusion, why would you do a massive, across-the-board, total readjustment of our economy, laying thousands of regulations on these companies? What would be your reason for it if it's not clear that they're really that concentrated? Maybe it's because your real goal is to have the government run private business, right? Well, it is. That's what it's doing. You see, it's telling private business what to do. And if it doesn't do it, then it fines it, stops it, seizes it, or arrests it, meaning the people. So the government is running the private business. The plan is not just socialist or communist, because that's what happens in a socialist or communist country. The government runs the businesses. In the case of our economy, it's ignorant and stupid because we just went through this. We had under Obama government by massive regulations. I used to do speeches in which I'd pile up the Code of Federal Regulations and it'd go through the roof. And then I'd pile it up when I became a lawyer. It was this big. And almost every one of those regulations was put on by a Democrat. And I would go to businesses that would say to me, the regulations are killing us more than the taxes. And I'll tell you, candidate Trump, while I was campaigning with him one day, said, and I had really learned this sort of on my own, but he said it to me like he was, telling me. Do you know, he said, Mayor, I came into this campaign thinking the biggest thing I could do to help the economy is really lower taxes and get more money in the economy. But I think if I could only do one thing, I'd get rid of a lot of these regulations. And I think that would alone would, shoom. We will be back very shortly. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Home title theft is one of the fastest growing forms of crime. In fact, Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home. A $100 value free. Go to HometitleLock.com. HometitleLock.com. Thank you very much for returning. Well, that's exactly what he did. His first year in office, he got rid of more regulations than probably any president in history. He even had a formula. I've forgotten exactly what it was. It was like, for every new regulation, you got to get rid of 5 or something. He ended up getting rid of like 50 for every new one. And you can go back and read it if you want. Before he got the tax cuts, the economy revived, and even the more left economists said it's because of the lower regulations. So we just had an example. Now, if you lower the regulatory burden, you produce money for the economy, enormous increases in jobs, and maybe Biden should find some way to get to where Trump was, right? Trump produced more jobs for African Americans and Latinos, better wages, and lower unemployment than any president in history, and they're not there now. So, Joe, if you really want to help Black people and minorities and even poor people, maybe you should take a page from Trump's book. Lower regulation. But no, you're not going to lower them. I mean, if Trump took them down to here, we're going back up there, baby. That's where we're going. I mean, I look at this. I see hundreds of thousands of regulations coming out of these agencies. You tell them the right regulations, and they'll stay up all night writing regulations, and they'll control business. So basically, I would say and pronounce the following. Joe Biden really isn't commander-in-chief. Nobody believes he actually makes decisions. If you watch him, he can't finish a sentence and make sense. And when he turns around to go out, he often turns around the wrong way. That's just the beginning of it. You and I know there's something wrong with him. And if you don't know it, watch carefully. And just be honest with yourself, because it's about your country. So if he's not the commander-in-chief, maybe they're going to make him the CEO-in-chief. Like he can be in charge of all American business, because it sure looks that way. In any event, he's not CEO material, but he wants to be CEO for the entire American economy. So what he does is he makes it into a socialist economy. That's his goal. This group of massive executive orders, and I've only gotten a chance to look at it quickly, applies to over a dozen agencies. He's got right away, within the next couple of weeks, 72 separate actions they are ordered to take, which would either bring back regulations that Trump got rid of that increase the economy, or add on all new left-oriented regulations, to preserve things and stop things and make sure that we don't affect the temperature. And well, let's give a couple of examples. And there are very few industries left out. Healthcare, he does a real job on. Along with the fact that we know through Obamacare, they want socialized medicine, where forget your medical plan or forget your doctor. We know that. We know they're headed that way. I mean, this is a Bernie economic plan. They want to reduce prescription drug prices. Well, there are a lot of ways to do that, and Trump had a lot of ways to. They throw those all aside. All of those would be free market ideas. Oh, gosh, free market. That's only the thing that made us the richest country on earth. Let's get rid of that. Let's do what the poor countries do. Let's have price controls. Let's let them buy drugs from Canada. Now, I just put a little warning there. Do you know the Canadians don't inspect the drugs they sell to us? That's our job. The drugs they keep are the drugs that they inspect and that meet FDA standards. The drugs that they sell to us are basically the ones from India that they don't want to sell in Canada. I've inspected them. I know what I'm talking about. That's what they do. That's how they make money. So good, try it. Use the Canadian drugs. We're all worried about, what's going to happen with a vaccine that hasn't gone through all the tests necessary. Well, you're going to be getting medicines that don't go through any tests because Canada says, you want to buy our medicine, we're not going to spend the money to do the tests for you. Yeah, we're not going to go around figuring out exactly what. It costs too much money. We just want to make money on you. They want, this sounds so nice, right? They want transparency for hospital billing. Well, that means federal bureaucrats will lay down a procedure for hospital billing that is so complicated that all hospitals will have to hire some guy or woman with 3 PhDs to do it and have a staff of about 100. There's how your hospital bill goes up. The useless, wasted bureaucrats filling out useless, wasted forms that are supposed to be transparent, but they're so detailed, you can't follow them. See, the thing is, these things sound nice in a soundbite. And if you know anything about a bureaucracy, they become just the opposite. This is why it's 1984. Transparency for hospital bills means you will never be able to understand the hospital bill because the federal government will require such detail, no one will understand it. And it will cost more money to be in the hospital. This is a real joke. HHS is going to have a whole place where they're going to look for insurance for you. They're going to look for insurance for 320 million Americans. How ridiculous is that? You realize what a bureaucratic endeavor that is? You're going to have to hire about 10,000 people to do that. And they're going to do something with hearing aids. They don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to do something with hearing aids. They're going to let them be sold over the counter. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be cheaper if they're sold over the counter. But in any event, that's a few of the things they want to do to healthcare. The end result is hospitals will become more expensive. We will have fewer doctors because they're leaving like crazy because of all of the paperwork they have to fill out. This will triple the amount of paperwork they have to fill out. This is everything that was wrong with an economy that couldn't grow under Obama, and he's put it back, but he's multiplied it by 4. Then it isn't just hospitals and doctors and medicine. Now we go to broadband, right? He's upset that people are paying too much for broadband. So he's going to limit the regulations that limit the choices of broadband. Well, is he going to go into apartment buildings that have broadband and say, well, you have to provide competition and 4 services rather than just one? And will that necessarily be cheaper? Or does the co-op or the condo or the apartment building or owner, negotiate the lowest possible and best deal? We don't know. These are reasons why you don't regulate up here. You work on it down here, and when you regulate up here, it becomes a dictatorial state. They're going to restore net neutrality. How much money it saved when Trump fixed that? We're just going to go back. And notice every single one of these grows the size of the centralized federal government. More government workers, more government bureaucrats, hundreds, thousands. Just like Moscow, used to be. And just like Beijing is today. We're going to see if we can have more bureaucrats than they have. Apparatchiks, I think they call them. Oh, so then big tech. Well, big tech, we got a couple of little things there. We're not going to do anything about the censorship. because that's working out real well for the Democrats. But we're going to establish rules on surveillance gathering. I imagine they will reinforce the rules they have now, which is you can surveil Republicans, but not Democrats. And if you do surveil Democrats, you don't disclose it. If you surveil Republicans, you violate the law and disclose it. Because I haven't seen it ever happen the other way around. Let's take a brief interruption. I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Thank you for coming back. And they're going to ban unfair methods of competition, which is totally in the eye of the beholder. And they're going to curb restrictions on your ability to get independent repairs of your devices, so that if Apple can only be repaired by Apple, it's going to have to be able to be repaired by lots of other people. Labor, they want to ban non-competition clauses. I don't know, did they ever figure out that that might be unconstitutional? It interferes with the right of contract. Well, we don't have rights. I'm sorry. We're going to becoming a socialist country. Of course they didn't think about that. It interferes with a private right. Those private rights just get in the way of the Democrat Party running everything. How about transportation? Well, these are nice little things. They're going to work out that your fees get refunded on some kind of a formula basis if your baggage is delayed. So they're going to go in and regulate baggage for all the airlines in America. That could cost us another 20,000 federal bureaucrats figuring out just exactly how much I should get back for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 7 hours of delay. Now, here's the best one of all. This is a Joe Biden special. Let me see if I got this right, because I'm not an expert on railroads. Require freight railroad track owners to provide rights and to defer to passenger rail. Why would you defer to passenger rail? Just like as a general rule. I mean, there are times when the passenger train maybe is more important than the freight train, but maybe sometimes there are times in which the freight train is more important than the passenger train because those goods have to get there sometime within the next, ionosphere. If you want to make rail transportation really efficient, you do it because you're Joe Biden, and this is about the only one he probably knows about, because this is like will help Amtrak, which his son was on the board of. He might have known more about that than he knew about Ukrainian oil and gas, and maybe he knew more about that than he does about painting, but I don't think he knew a lot about it. Agriculture, he's going to regulate agriculture. He's going to have stricter rules for made in USA. Oh, now he's a guy who's America first. I don't know, he spent all that time with the Europeans putting America last. We're not even going to collect what they owe us. He says we're a country that's systemically racist. Maybe he's going to have to put in made in USA we can put it in small writing, a systemically racist country, quote Joe Biden numerous times. By the way, Biden, stop attacking my country. Stop calling it an evil country. I don't think it's a joke. I know you're not all there, but you're there enough to know you shouldn't be doing that. It's disgraceful that you say that. I think you'll get people killed saying that. But let me get back to where we were. He's going to limit restrictions on equipment repair that can only be done by the manufacturer. But how does he know whether it needs to be done by the manufacturer or not? Shouldn't that be left to private litigation where you can look at the facts and the details and not some general rule? I mean, this is like we've taken our almost entire economy and he's now micromanaging it. These are things that get worked out in lawsuits because sometimes they're right. Sometimes the manufacturer is being abusive and saying, I have to fix it. And sometimes the manufacturer has a very unique product. And sometimes he wants his product to be so good and to have so few problems because he wants to have the best product, the premier product. He doesn't want somebody else fooling around with it. That's a legitimate, sensible business reason that would never occur to essentially a socialist communist planner. And this is why they failed and we succeeded. You're getting into the weeds of it right now. You're getting into the weeds of how a country becomes a failure. And he wants easier transfer of data. In other words, if you're going from bank to bank, they shouldn't charge you. And I mean, who knows if that's right, wrong, or... We got China that right now wants to surpass us by 2049. They're making strides, so they're going to do it a lot faster. Right now, the first 4 or 5 steps in the confrontation, he loses every one. And he's worried about transfer of data. I mean, let the states work that out. Oh, we don't have, by the way, another thing, we're not going to have states after a while. So let's just take a little look at this. I probably don't even have all of them. He's micromanaging and suggesting regulations in detail, picking on regulations to break up concentration where there's no proof that there is concentration except for big tech. He's doing it for agriculture, finance, banking, which is related, doctors, hospitals, healthcare in general, shipping, rail transportation, regular technology, and let's call it internet technology, broadband, labor practices. He's got areas where he sets wages and areas where he sets prices. And I'm sure I missed a lot. That pretty much, if this is the economy, that's about that much of it, right? So he's running the economy. This is the Joe Biden plan for the economy. Only thing he hasn't done that would make it like a pure repeat of Stalin and Lenin, Stalin really, and Mao and Z is if he gave it, they love to put years on it. Their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan, their 20-year plan, whatever. So we don't know what this is. Hopefully this is no more than a 3.5-year plan. So this is all premised on concentration. There's all this concentration. Bad concentration. And Joe doesn't know that. I mean, I know Joe. I know Joe for 1981. I'm going to make sure I get it right because he gets numbers wrong all the time. 91, 101, 31 years. 30 years. I know Joe for 30 years. Well, he's got a lawyer working for him on this. The guy's name is Tim Wu, and he's some kind of lawyer and antitrust expert. But he's also what's called a progressive lawyer. I don't exactly know what a progressive lawyer is, but I'm a really, really good lawyer, although apparently the New York people and the DC people don't think I am. But I'm a really, really good lawyer, accomplished more than most lawyers have accomplished. And I love being a lawyer, and I got pretty good powers of legal analysis. And I don't know if Tim Wu has ever kind of modernized his knowledge of antitrust law. There used to be a time in antitrust law where bigness was badness. Just because a company was big, or just because a company even monopolized, it must be bad for the country, bad for the economy, bad for the consumer, and we got to break it up. A long time ago, the Supreme Court applied some wisdom to that. And the wisdom is this: sometimes big is bad. Sometimes big is good. It's not always bad. And if the purpose of the antitrust laws is to preserve and protect competition, it can be counterproductive to go after a big company as a monopoly if it is helping the consumer, helping competition. This would be a good time for a short break. I've been sleeping on my pillows for some time. I love them. They're simply the very best pillows ever made. But I just found out that they also have a wide assortment of other incredible products like their mattress toppers, sheets, towels, and slippers, and more. Listeners have helped build My Pillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. Pick some pillows or pick several of the other great products, and you can get super discounts on My Pillow products by going to mypillow.com, promo code Rudy, or call 1-800-725-7759, promo code Rudy right now, and see each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like the pillows, mattress topper, and geyser sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these new great specials. That's mypillow.com, promo code Rudy. And now we'll get to the finale. So they established what was known as, and even lawyers that are not experts on antitrust law know this, it's a very famous legal doctrine. It's called rule of reason. What that means is you're not stupid and you say, they're big, bad, break up. No, you say, they're big, let's take a look at the industry and let's say, oh my goodness, Walmart really does lower prices for the consumer and puts pressure on others to compete to get prices lower. Maybe on the whole, that's good for the average American. On the other hand, let's look at these telephone companies that, the Carter and Reagan administrations both did. May have even gone back to the Ford Nixon administrations. I think it did. And look at what they're doing with the prices and how they're setting things off with each other. And because of their control and you have no choices, they broke it up. And look what we have available now. And we're going through another phase now where, people who are worried about cable, you've got all these other abilities to get cable at a much lower rate. And the competition gives you so many more options. And if you know what you're doing, you save money. So maybe one was a bad area to apply the law of break it up. You were just going to hurt people, including consumers. And whenever you break it up, you always hurt people. They lose jobs. And the other was a good one. So, maybe he could at least, if he doesn't trust me, this guy Wu, who apparently must have gone to law school a long time ago before the rule of reason, which makes him a retrogressive, really, rather than a progressive. Progressives would know the rule of reason. So maybe he should read some of Stephen Breyer's opinions in the Supreme Court. I think he would trust Breyer's, although they seem to want to get rid of Breyer's, right? But he was Kennedy's chief of staff. He's a great justice. I don't agree with him, but I think he's a great justice. Maybe he could read him and Breyer's could explain to him the rule of reason. Maybe if he reads him, he'll say, gee, boss, I made a big mistake. Let's get rid of all this. Think that'll happen? So we're going to do all this, control of business, in the name of breaking up competition, all competition, without any analysis of whether the competition is enormously helpful to the consumer and saving us tremendous amounts of money and giving us things we otherwise wouldn't have. Or concentration is really bad. It's really raping people, destroying businesses, and making things much more expensive. Both can happen. A long time ago, we figured out that we shouldn't be Neanderthals and just apply it one way. Wu is a Neanderthal. He's back there. Don't give him the word progressive, you phony press sycophants. Huh? That's not progressive. This is a major restructuring of government. I'm going to miss ways in which they're destroying our form of government. First of all, this completely eliminates the law and practice with regard to independent agencies. They're telling the FTC, the FDA, every one of the alphabet agencies what to do. They're supposed to be bipartisan and independent. Ha! They're even given time periods when they have to do it. So he has now become the chief executive of all the independent agencies, who have just become not independent anymore, even though Congress says they are, and the courts have defined them as such. So screw that. I got those independent agencies. This is what you do. You lower the drug prices. You let drugs in from Canada. Just get it done. This is an all-encompassing plan by the president for a private economy to break up the across-the-board damage being done by concentration when there is no across-the-board damage being done by concentration. So what is it? It's a pretext. It's a pretext. And it's a pretext in order to assert control over business, in order to move us toward, if we aren't there yet, government control of the private economy, because this is controlling some large percentage of the private economy. Now, what do we call government control of the private economy? For those of you who went to school, we call it socialism. We call what we have a free market economy. We call what we have a republic. We call it a democracy in part, right? We call it a limited government with checks and balances. And we say that our unique success as a nation comes from those things that other countries didn't do. So what does Saul saw there? There's the president running the private sector. There's the president running the independent agencies illegally, I believe. A lot of these things would be knocked out in the court. There's the president acting like the Congress. A lot of these things need laws. There were no recommendations for laws here, like a lot of the other executive orders he's already done. Because he's Joe, we don't examine him, Biden. He's been doing more executive orders than any president in history, like there is no Congress. Some of them have already been declared unconstitutional by the courts. I guarantee you, I haven't had the time to look at this, but when you combine his complete trashing of the independent agency laws and his complete trashing of the separation of powers, half of this has got to be straight out unconstitutional. And then what he's done is he's aggregated everything to the executive branch and everything to the federal government. He's destroyed the check and balance of federal state. The Supreme Court long ago said, that's not about the states. It's not about state government. It's a protection for your rights that these governments have to compete with each other. You understand what I'm saying? What the framers did, this isn't to make states important. It's to make you safe. This is the exact opposite of why we became a free country. We became a free country because we were burdened by the dictatorship from the centralized government of England on us. Around 1760, maybe. The political theory in London changed. They'd pretty much left us alone to be like a federation and make our own decisions. We even had gotten together our little kind of Congress and made our own laws, and we had all these independent states, or whatever you wanted to call them. They made their own rules, and then about 1760, we'll get the exact date, a different political theory came about in London, probably as dumb as the one that Biden has now, which is we got to exercise micromanagement of these colonies. So they began telling us they began centralizing all the power in London and taking it away from the colonies, taxing us from there, telling us what we could do or not do, telling us we couldn't restrict slavery, telling us we couldn't restrict slavery in the new colonies. Several battles with Thomas Jefferson over that. It's in the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, if you bigoted racist ever read it. If you can read. Jefferson was fighting for the ability to stop the spread of slavery against the king, who refused to let him do it, and others, not just Jefferson. There's a big movement in New England for that. That's one of the reasons. I'm not saying it's the main reason for the revolution, but it's one of the reasons for the revolution. And none of the reasons for the revolution is because we wanted to continue slavery. That is a bold-faced lie, only made up by people who hate us and hate our country. Just go read. Don't let these people brainwash you. There was discomfort from slavery in America from the beginning, and Jefferson was extremely discomforted from it, tried to abolish it, failed, tried to limit it, failed, and warned us that we were going to pay a heavy price for it, that he didn't have the moral courage, the additional moral courage to destroy his political career. For that, he should be blamed. But every president of the United States probably had some equal compromise that had to be made. And very few presidents of the United States wrote words that inspired freedom for millions and millions of people, not just Americans. All men are created equal resounded as a clarion call for freedom. And when he put his name on that document, he put his life on that document. So I get real angry when these ignorant communists and agitators and hate America people attack our founding fathers. I don't think they're perfect, but I think they're better than anybody else's founding fathers. Now, when you can combine what Biden is doing with our economy, with what his whole movement is doing with our history, destroying it, our flag, the 1619 New York Times program that we were founded in racism, they don't condemn that. Their ally, the teachers union, wants to teach it in all schools. That's a Democrat Party organization. They want to teach critical lives matter. They want to teach 1619. They want to work closely. I'm telling you, Randy Weingarten said this. They want to work closely with Black Lives Matter. Randy, I know you. I work with you. Black Lives Matter wants to kill police officers. What do you think it means when they say pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, and everybody cheers? What do you think that means, Randy? It means kill fellow municipal workers who are in uniform and are called police officers. That's what it means. And not coincidentally, it happens. What is wrong with you? How far left have you gone? And does that remove logic and conscience? Black Lives Matter help you with the classroom, with our children? Patrice Cullors, dedicated Marxist. The two others are communists. They want to take our children away at 2 years old and re-educate them. They want to give them hormones at 8 and 9. Now, what's he doing with spending? I mean, the spending is completely, you can't even count it anymore. 2 trillion here, 3 million, 7 million, 5 trillion here. Here's what it's doing right now. Right now, the best we can do is it's creating a 33% increase in our debt. We never did a 33% increase in our debt, maybe during the war. I think once since the war. 33% increase in our debt. Just pass it on to your kids. Destroy our economy. Because if we destroy our economy, we'll want to be socialist. And that means the tax rates are going to go up to, well over 50%. You become the junior partner in your wages. The government is the senior partner. We call that, by the way, just to show you we're moving toward communism. I think Karl Marx had a word for it. I wish I knew it in German. It's called redistribution of wealth. It's all over the Communist Manifesto. Like to read it? So is the breakup of the nuclear family, by the way. That's where Black Lives Matter got that. And the destruction of history and whatever. So Lenin destroyed the history of Russia, took down all their statues, explained how everybody before them was horrible, terrible, awful. Mao did it twice. He did it originally in 48, 49 when he came in, and the Cultural Revolution. How many people did they kill during the Cultural Revolution? Chinese are not allowed to recognize that 5,000-year beautiful culture they have. You know that? They'll be killed if they do. Because it's got to go to the Communist Party. Got to go to Mao. You know, that's why they had Mao swim in the Yangtze River, pretend that he could do it. And that's how they had, Putin on the horse. Putin does all kinds of crazy stuff. And in Biden's case, they actually pretend that he knows what he's saying. So that's what they do with him. They can't get much out of him. They can't get him to swim or do stuff like that. But it's pretty good how, given what is going on with him, they get him to walk out and actually complete about 2 minutes and do press conferences where he's given the questions, the answers, and the reporters to call, and he'll get in trouble if he doesn't. They got him you notice how often he says, I'll get in trouble if I don't, I'll get in trouble if I don't. You kind of notice that a lot in nursing homes. This is a terrible, terrible, very dangerous situation. Please don't underestimate it. And very few people will tell you that because it gets censored from the media. The minute this hit, every American journalist who has a brain and has gone to college and has read history should tell you this is a repeat of the communist 5-year plans, 10-year plans. Just like the Black Lives Matter and critical race theory and 1619 program destruction of our history comes right from the Mao playbook, right from Marx, destroy the history, get them to hate the country. It's so clear. It's so clear. Breaking up the nuclear family, taking kids away at 2 for re-education. Don't tell the parents if they have gender problems, take care of it. The state will take care of it. And then look, if you just need one last indication. I had about 10, I don't have time for it. I'll give you one last indication. What's going on right now in Cuba? I'm very, very close to the Cuban community, very, very close. I spent a lot of time with them, and I've spent a lot of time in Florida, and those demonstrations going on in Cuba, why is the White House afraid to say that it's in order to overthrow a completely brutal, godless, homicidal communist regime? A communist regime who originally imprisoned people with AIDS and even executed them. And Hollywood supports them. An island that is falling apart, that used to be on the way to being a paradise. Why can't they say that this is obviously because the economic program of communism and the dictatorship of communism destroyed that island? And many of its best people fled. Some lived, some died. It's an example of tyranny. Why? Why the sympathy for communism? Why can't Biden say it? Why can't Psaki say it? Instead, it's they're all upset about their vaccines. I don't know, the Cuba Libre signs and the American flags and the pictures of Trump kind of indicate this isn't about vaccines, huh? And even if it's partially about vaccines, it's about a broken down system in which hundreds of thousands of people have died by a brutal homicidal maniac, Fidel Castro, his brother, and his compatriots. That somehow the woke left completely misrepresented to the American people. maybe because he flattered their weak egos. He never flattered my weak ego. Maybe it's not that weak. When I threw Arafat out of the United Nations, I didn't have to throw a celebration. I didn't have to throw Castro because I barred him. And I barred him from every event in New York City. I was told I couldn't do it. And I said, test it. I got cops. What do you got? I don't like dictators, and I don't like murderers. Castro's both. His brother is both. And all the people around them are. I like presidents who, call people out directly. Biden's a disgrace for letting so much time go by and let those people in the street wither away. That's how you get people killed. I know you're impaired, but you're not that impaired. I wish there was somebody around you who had a conscience. But it shows me your sympathy for communism. This is a great moment for the Cuban people. Every American who cares about freedom and liberty is with them. And every American who cares about freedom and liberty despises the communist regime, the godless, murderous, homicidal communist regime of Cuba. And we want them to succeed. And we want them to be free. And we want them to have a government in which they can make their own decisions. They can believe in God and worship God if they want. They can have their own businesses. And they can be as successful as the wonderful Cuban people who came to America and are probably one of our most successful immigrant groups in the twinkling of an eye. Because these are very good, strong people. You give them one opening toward liberty, that island will turn around in 10 years. And it'll be another showplace for the wonders that can be done by freedom, democracy, the rule of law, decency, and capitalism. Thank you. And please, stay in close touch now. We're going through very, very dangerous times. I have a weekly alert also. I may even expand that as they continue to move closer and closer towards socialism. So I keep warning you. And I'm going to develop a system in which we can notify each other. So stay in close touch. Stay in close touch with the podcast at rudyscommonsense.com. The alert right now is on Mondays. We may expand it. I will let you know. And of course, I'm on WABCradio.com every day between 3 and 4. And then with Dr. Maria Ryan Uncovering the Truth, which has become very, very successful and very interesting show that people seem to really like. And that's between 10 and 11 Eastern time on WABCradio.com. So I think this is a time in which we all have to stay in close touch. And I also mean with a lot of my colleagues who are getting to you the information you know, because if you don't get it through us, you're not going to get it. And then we could fail, and we don't want to fail. We've got to save this country. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Any questions you have, please contact me, and we'll be back very, very shortly. God bless you, and God bless our great country.